Just to explain the session, Kavi and Anil will be speaking on storytelling via blogs.
What does this picture tell you? Nothing, right? You see a photograph of an old man holding a BD, and it doesn't look like he has footwear. Nothing, right? You don't see his face. And Saffron, maybe he's a sadhu. That's the most that you can draw from this photograph. Well, on my travels, I think this person happened to be, or turned out to be, one of the most interesting people I ever met. I was backpacking along the coast of Karnataka. This was around, I think, around 11 or 12 years ago. I just got hold of a camera. I had just 3 film rolls to expend over a period of 3 days. And I had a very low budget, maybe around 1,500 or 2,000 rupees. And I would rely on buses, tempos, which would hold around 32 people, 35 people as well. Because there's nothing like traveling on public transport to get the stories that you need. And I ended up at the Mokambika Wildlife Sanctuary. I passed through it and ended up coming to Kollur, right? That's where I met Kadavil Appukuttan. And he was 86 years when I met him, so I'm not sure if he's still around. I hope he is. He was demobilized from the British Indian Army in 1948, right? And he had no job. So I asked him, why did you become a sadhu? He said, after I got demobilized, the Indian government in 1948 from the British Indian Army, after working for around 8 years, nobody trusted the lot of us, so we were demobilized. And because we were in the British Indian Army, there were not many jobs to go around, so I couldn't get a job, so I became a sadhu. I think that was the first time I realized that people do become sadhu for reasons other than faith or religion and things like that. And he worked with the 37 Field Ambulance Unit in World War II. Now, I had some difficulty communicating with him because he came from Kerala and he had a very thick accent, right? And his Hindi was, kind of passable. And I tried to make out some things, like some of the things which I couldn't quite understand. And he was old, he couldn't speak very clearly as well. He served in Singapore, where the British Army retreated, right, under Japanese assault. Then they fought the Japanese to a standstill in the jungles of Burma. Kadavil Appukuttan was in every single place where the British Army took him to. And he told me about the lunch they would take in the trenches and shelter from the bombing runs of Japanese planes. Just imagine, right? I just go to a temple. I thought like it's a very old temple. It would be nice to see it, and I meet this guy over there. So, and they took many Japanese prisoners in Rangoon. And this is where he smiled. That was the first time he smiled. He was very happy to tell me, like, they took Japanese prisoners. Maybe they must have tormented these guys a lot. So he was pretty pleased with it. And more importantly, he said, we made them, sweep the floors and things like that. And the officers, he was telling me. So that made him happy as well. So some memories, even 70, 80 years later, they're pretty fresh. And they would ask us for goodbye cigarettes, he said. And that is very strange because, the very fact that in a war, you have cigarettes which are named goodbye, I think there's a very deeper meaning to it as well, the way you can associate with it. So, and he said, in my company, there were 18 people who did not smoke. So he remembered the number as well. 18 people did not smoke, so we were more than happy to give those goodbye cigarettes to the Japanese prisoners, who kind of had said goodbye to their own country, and they were with us for a very long time. He also remembered that, he said Captain Lakshmi Sehgal of the Indian National Army was imprisoned at the prison where I was based for one single day in Singapore, and they were held in a prison camp for a day. Then he told me he visits temples all over India, and we had a pretty nice conversation. I had a bus to catch, so and it was the last bus out of Kollur. So if I didn't catch that, I would be back. I couldn't be back that night, so I left and went. So these are kind of stories that you too tend to find, and is every picture worth 1,000 words? Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. What is it is right? And this was one story I wish I could have picked up. I followed up with the British Foreign Office later, tried to see whether I could get information from their military records, but I couldn't. Maybe I couldn't get to the right people over there. So I had no idea what happened. When he told me that there was the last commanding officer he served under was one Mr. Sachidananda. So I think then I managed to connect with the ashram where Satchitananda lived, but I was told that he was ill and he couldn't come and speak. So I asked like when he would be better. So I called up again maybe a month or so later. He said he's still not keeping well, because I thought it would be interesting to find out the backstory as well. So the strange thing is, on your travels, right, when something strikes you about the person and you try to tell a story, and you never know where the story leads you, and how far that you want to continue with that story is entirely up to you. Sometimes there are threads which roll on and on and on, sometimes they don't. So when you're storytelling with photographs, then let surprises hit you, right? That's the most important thing. You know, it has certain freshness to it. It's something which you're not anticipated, and that's why you can bring a very, immediate reaction to that. And very often that tends to be an interesting way to tell a story. So this was about Kadavil Appukutan. Now, next, okay. Now, are 1,000 pictures worth a single word? We saw a picture is worth 1,000 words. So are 1,000 pictures worth a single word? Anyone? Yeah? Are you sure? Right. Look at his photograph now. Thousands of pictures. Well, I think this was 2 years ago, and somebody had this bright idea of trying to make sense of the photographs that are put out, for us to see. So what it did was, Eric Kessels, I have a Flickr account as well, so I can very well tell you that you literally have millions and millions of photographs being put, I think now by the hour as well. But 2 years ago, I don't know what was the figure, but I think it was large enough. In a 24-hour period, he printed out just about every photograph that was uploaded to Flickr. And this is the only room, this is not the only room in that exhibit. There are far more, I think there were 3 or 4 rooms. He filled it up, and he invited people to walk through them. So his idea was, walk through them and try and make sense of whether you can find something of interest. It's very difficult. So it's very important that you choose and you're selective about the photographs that you put out, even if you're not selective of the photographs that you take. And too often when we blog, or many of the blog posts that I end up seeing is that photograph after photograph after photograph after photograph after photograph. Each photograph is similar to the other one, to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. It doesn't tell a story at all. What you're telling, if you think that repeating photographs tells a story, no, it doesn't. It just tells the story. It tells the story, yes, but it tells the story of a repetition. So that's like. So now let me give you maybe another one over here. Yeah. So that's it. That's a glut. So now the question is, if that is what it is, so what hope is there for stories blogged using photographs? In fact, to discover our own humanity, to make sense of our world, to make sense of self, to connect with others, to share, to learn, to unlearn, to grow, and sometimes to look back and find out how far we have come and how far we still have to go. I've been writing my blog for, I think, close to 10 years now. This April, it should be completing 10 years. And so in other words, like, I'm what many people would say veteran bloggers. But like Ravi said, the number of blog posts that I've put up over this 10 years, the number is pretty small. I'm pretty selective about what I write, not because I don't have stories to tell, but because of many other considerations, right? So what do I see when I look back at some of the posts that I've written over a long time ago, maybe 8 years or 9 years ago, or maybe 7 years ago and 6 years ago? I realized that the type of photographs I would take right then and the type of photographs that I take now has changed. That you grow, right? And you learn what photographs to take, what not, what photographs might tell you a good story, which may not. You look at professionals, you look at photographers, storytellers, you look at some of the great minds like Bresson and people who told stories through photographs and things like that. You change. So how far have you come is one of the clearest indications as to how far you might still go. And to connect with others, I think that's been the best part of photographing and blogging using photographs. So it's become, like Einstein said, right? I think he made a lot of sense when he said it's become appallingly obvious that the technology has exceeded our humanity. The ability to generate, put out, contribute to the glut is largely engendered by the technology at our disposal. Stories have the ability to redeem our humanity, redeem another's humanity as well. And that's what you try and communicate. But why blog photo stories? That is to give a face to the humanity we discover on the street and off it. But why? For you, right? It's the personal, the nostalgia, the sentiment, for the circle, friends, family, strangers, community. I came to Bombay, it was Bombay when I came here. I came from Goa. I had no friends over here. Back in Goa, we had a great time, but here it was difficult to actually get around. So I thought blogging is one way that I could keep my friends in touch with what I'm doing over here. But quickly I realized that friends are friends, right? I mean, they're very happy to go out with you, but you ask them to read your blog post, none of them will. So then I began to get responses from people, who were reading it, and that kept me going. And then I began to realize that, there are a lot of stories to tell the photographs and keep me occupied as well. The photograph, where it's a trigger, a reason why you photograph. What is the trigger? A reason why you photograph, the feeling that you get when you're trying to photograph it, and what is the message that you're trying to communicate as well. And then you see where does it fit, in the narrative sequence, right? Of set of photographs which tell a story, or is it in one-off? Now, the lady lighting the candles, right? I mean, this was in Makasana, I think, in Goa as well. So it was near a wetland. In Goa, you see a lot of roadside crosses, and many of them put them up in memory of their loved ones. And later, the village, the neighborhood, they come and pray over there, say prayers. So every cross you see, there's every chance like they've actually put up in the memory of a loved one. And I couldn't resist but take this photograph of this youth congress, right? That's Gadojo, that's what they say in Konkani as well, hanging there. And it fit the national narrative as well, like Congress in the woods, Congress in the jungle, and nothing around over there. So that is quite an apt one. And in telling stories, one is you live your story. You try to get the reader who reads your photo stories to live through the experience that you've been through, to be able to understand the feelings that you try and communicate aptly using the appropriate photographs. And then you also learn lessons from the stories that you're telling. Those are the lessons that you put out in your posts. And those learnings are something which other people can gather as well. They can also learn from you. There is another way which you can communicate and get the people to connect with you. And you try and bring creative tension, right, wherever there is, but don't try and create tension where there isn't. And you economize the story that's told. You try to take the path of least resistance and try to arrive at the conclusion, if any you have. And most importantly, you have to show, right, don't tell. And that's where photographs are indispensable to storytelling. And what do you take away? It strengthens your own understanding, why the information that you gathered, like the Kadavela Pukutan story that I said, that I hadn't known about many of the things that happened in World War II in the context of India's participation in it, of course, under the British rule. And it expands your learnings via insights from reading all the stories that I got to know about the people, the soldiers who served in the army. And that's just one example. And deepens the meaning of your own experience as well. And for me, face-to-face with one person who was demobilized, I think brought home very clearly and very precisely as to what the experience might have been there. And you recognize, you realize, and once you recognize and realize, you empathize, and that needs to come out in your photo stories as well. Your photographs need to tell that. And one of the things was like, on the Goan coast, you have a lot of fishing boats, right, which come in, which go out for 8 days, 9 days, 10 days in the waters. They come back they fish in deep waters, maybe 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers deep in the sea. This was at Betul. Can I get the lights off? I'm not sure whether this photograph you can see it clearly, right? Okay, so this guy is Johnny, right? And I was very curious, one trawler had come in and it was a Betul Katbana jetty. Betul is a very beautiful beach as well. And I asked if I could actually come onto the boat. He said, yeah. And he looked to be a friendly guy. He was actually originally from Mangalore, and he was the only guy who was, I think most of the other people were from Orissa as well, and there was no Goan on the boat, though the boat was Goan. And so Johnny took me around, he showed me the hold where they actually put in the fish when they actually fish and, get the catch in the deep ocean, right? And all the places where they would stock the ice and put it, and he took me inside as well, showed me the engine room and just about everything else, and the utensils that they used when out in the sea, and the kind of fishes they caught. He had a whole variety of them, and they would cook there itself. They had stoves and everything, the entire life on the boat. And this was a boat that I went on, and of which Johnny was a crew, the Saint Antonius, yeah. And a very shy kind of guy. So once I came back after my encounter with him, I think I could probably understand and maybe relate to what it is to be a fisherman as well. So photography, right? One of the best things about wielding a camera when you're out on the street is you get an excuse to peep into other people's lives. Sometimes people don't like it. Very often they don't like it. But sometimes they don't mind telling the stories as well. I might not have gone onto this particular boat, right, if I didn't feel that that boat presented a very pretty picture in the harbor, or the fact that it would make a nice picture if I could photograph somebody unloading the fish from there as well. So that got me on, and then I also wanted to show like what is a fish hold like, right, down. So photograph that as well. So that's one of the best things about photography and wanting to tell stories to pictures as well. Henry Cartier-Bresson, I'm sure many of the people gathered over here would have heard of him. He was a photographer known for what he said was a very decisive moment, that's what he photographed. And he said, to me, the photography is a simultaneous recognition in a fraction of a second of the significance of an event, as well as a precise organization of forms which give that event its proper expression. Now let's see what he means by this. This is one of Bresson's photographs. So the geometry, he tried to convey a person riding a bicycle, and the form, the balance, the aesthetics, and the technical aspects to it. Aesthetic and technical. A great photograph, right, it requires both components to it. One is the aesthetic and the technical. And what Robert Hall said is very apt as well. You agree with this? Too often, you want to communicate what ecotourism is doing, doing to wildlife sanctuaries, just show them the photograph. This is what happened when a tiger crossed the road and it went to its kill. You want to tell as to how closely bonded elephants are in families and how they look out for each other, just show the picture. You want to see what the scene is like when a fishing boat comes in and there's an open auction being held on the beach, and people gather over there with the owners, everyone trying to quote prices and the owner trying to keep the prices high and the other people down. Show the photograph. Stories everywhere. Who hasn't read his Manitas of Kumau? Thrill, dread, anticipation, everything else. Corbett National Park, who wouldn't want to go there? Photo stories can be personal. You can connect with your own experience of reading the books and the adventure of the tiger trails that the author was on when he went hunting the Manitas, romance of it, conservation, context of conflict. So there are many, many, many angles to a place where you visit. Of course, it depends on where you visit, but something like Corbett National Park, these are the kind of stories you'll find over there. And these are the kind of stories for which photographs are readily available as well. So this was on my trip to Corbett National Park. This is the tiger that came on. People were gathered over there. Almost 15 jeeps with, I think, 4 or 5 people each, sometimes 3 people each. So all gathered to see the tiger. They actually interrupted the tiger from eating its meal as well, the kind of damage it does. And to support those many people, you have a whole lot of lodges that are coming through. This is blocking the route to the Kosi River, which the elephants and all the wild animals use to go and drink. This is the damage it's doing, right? This is another story that could be set up there. And to build those resorts and everything else, you have young kids over there who are working, carrying stones, and this guy was actually loading that for the construction material. I asked him, do you go to school? He said, I don't. I really have to work and help my parents as well, but I might go to school the next year. And this was the guest house, which we thought it was when we were tracking the rest houses that Jim Corbett stayed in when he was hunting the Mohan Manitas. So that was a track and trail that we are tracking, that trail that he took. This is on the story that he could send. We realized that this is where Jim Corbett stayed when he was hunting the Mohan Manita. The ridges, these photographs bring alive the descriptions of Corbett when he was hunting the Manitas. And this was a guy who said, yeah, so what if the tigers are killed? Why should a tiger be more important than the goat, right? If you lose a tiger, nobody suffers. But if the tiger eats the goat, then the person who owns the goat suffers. So what's the harm? But there was irony in it. This was a chai wala we stopped at. The irony was he didn't mind the tiger being killed, but there was a calendar in his chai shop which actually showed Durga astride a tiger. So that was the kind of irony that you end up seeing. Up close personal. This was at Amir Khusro's Dargah, Old Delhi. I happened to meet the Qawwal, Imran Hussain. He told me about his stories about his ambition is to actually come to Bombay and be able to sing and be a part of the Bollywood film industry. This is Amir Khusro's, this is where he lies buried. People around over there. So a couple of last quick thoughts is that what was interesting was Imran Hussain would come a very long way, right? Travel a very long way to come to Amir Khusro's Dargah. And then whenever anyone would, donate money, when you're singing those qawwalis, what he would do is after some time he would put all those notes in his pocket. So I was sitting in one corner and trying to see what photographs I could get, and then he told me he noticed me seeing him put that money in the pocket. So he realized that I must be wondering why. He said, see, I come here before all the other experienced qawwals come, and this is a slot I get. Once they come, I have to get up and go. But if they realize that I'm earning more money, right, and then they would try and come earlier than when they do, and I wouldn't get an opportunity to actually sit here and sing the qawwals. So that was pretty interesting, the kind of survival instincts that kick in when you're out on the street and trying to make a living. This is where, right, he's sitting right across opposite the entrance to the Dargah. So the point is, I would kind of end with this, is we should take care not to make the intellect a god. It has, of course, powerful muscles, but no personality. Humanity has personality. And photography as a medium is one of the best options open to storytelling, wherein you can actually focus on the personality of the people, the characters, and so what everything else. So just blog it. Thank you.